Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And I know the conversation we're about to have, everybody's looking forward to it. It has been a robust conversation, great panelists. So thank you all for your participation and support of the DC Chamber. Now I'm going to take a moment to introduce the moderator of the next fireside chat conversation, where we have Council Member Brooke Pinto and Deputy Mayor on Safety Lindsay Apia. So thank you for your participation. Roger Mitchell Jr. Was named as the chair of the Department of Pathology at the Howard University College of Medicine on March 1st, 2021. Dr. Mitchell before served as interim deputy mayor for public safety and justice and chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia. In this role he leads a department that is at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic response and will also oversee the Department of Pathology, educational research, clinical, and administrative activities. During his tenure as DC Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Mitchell gained a strong insight of the social determinants that led to the violence affecting our most vulnerable communities. He also partnered with Howard University Hospital's Level 1 Trauma Center on key initiatives to help reduce violence among at-risk public school students. Dr. Mitchell earned his undergraduate degree from Howard University, his medical degree from the New Jersey Medical School, New York, and he completed his APCP residency at George Washington University. He's board certified in anatomic and forensic pathology by the American Board of Pathology and a fellow with the National Association of Medical Examiners, where he serves as chair of the Strategic Planning Subcommittee and is the immediate past chair of the Deaths in Custody Subcommittee. Additionally, he recently served as the national co-chair for the NMA Working Group on Gun Violence and Police Use of Force. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell, for helping us with this conversation this afternoon. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Angela. This is a great opportunity for us to have a conversation. I would ask that our esteemed colleagues that are here for the fireside chat, please include your relevant experience from your bio as you answer the question. We don't have much time for this very important discussion, so we're going to jump really right in to this discussion. And the first question is going to go to Deputy Mayor Apia. Just recently this week, we know that we crossed the threshold of 200 homicides, and we are seeing an uptick in those homicides comparatively to other times in the history of the city. Can you tell us from your perspective what's happening now in our city to solve the problem of crime and violence?
Sure. I mean, those numbers are stark, but what I would say is that for us, truly, whether it's 50 or 200, that's too much in our city. And so we always want to start there, because we oftentimes talk about this 200 number. It's not a magic mark, it's an awful mark. But I come from a public health background. I have an undergraduate degree in community health from Brown and then a law degree. And what is being or has been done in our city there through under your leadership, even Dr. Mitchell, is a lot of examination and planning in the past around the types of public health and public safety interventions that are needed in a balanced way to keep our city safe. And there is, we've seen success in the past, and certainly the pandemic upended some of that balance. And we have I'm a very honest person, we've gotten out of balance. So when you ask what has been done to date, much study, much investments in programming and policing and rehabilitation across our system. And so I would say we have a lot of pillars in place, but we have had an imbalance that has led us to some outcomes that are simply unacceptable. The place that we are right now.
So thank you for that. This imbalance that we're talking about, I'm gonna pivot to Councilwoman Pinto. Talk to us about your perspective on what's happening now to solve the problem of crime and violence in our city, and you sit in this role in our legislature.
Sure. And thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell, and thank you all for having us today. I think even the importance of the topic of public safety to the chamber is really indicative of how broad these challenges are, and they affect every one of us across the city. And in terms of homicides and gun-related deaths, we see really disproportionate impacts of gun violence across the city. My perspective as the Ward 2 council member, but more relevantly, the chairwoman of the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety for the council, is that we cannot operate in silos when it comes to improvements that we need to make. Deputy Mayor Pia and I are working closely together. The mayor and I are on the same page on this. I think there's a lot of consistency across the city that more needs to be done because everyone deserves peace and everyone deserves security in the city. And so a couple of weeks ago, in terms of kind of what we're doing next, and what can be done now, I introduced a package of initiatives called Secure DC. And this is some new laws, some oversight and hearing functions. In the council, we have kind of three primary roles that we can help here. One is the legislative environment, making sure that we are passing laws that are supporting public safety. The second is around oversight of our public safety agencies and making sure they both have what they need to succeed and that they're meeting the metrics that they say they're going to. And the third is around budget investments. And so we've tried to think of everything we kind of can within those three buckets around new laws for accountability, making sure the U.S. attorney has what he needs to prosecute our most violent cases, making sure that judges can hold people pre-trial for committing our most violent crimes, making sure people who are on supervised release don't have access to illegal firearms. We see less than 50% of people who are arrested for any charge recidivate or be rearrested, but that number is closer to 68% when we're talking about gun-related charges. And so it's really important that we ensure that people who have committed gun-related offenses don't have access to illegal firearms when they come home. We're also working on preventative measures, setting up new blue lights at our transportation systems, setting up new security patrols for commercial corridors that will be run out of the deputy mayor's office, for new security and lights at our recreation spaces so families can have places to recreate on nights and weekends safely. Additional roundtables on organized retail theft, violence interruption, our Office of Unified Communication, and hiring for agencies across our public safety system, including MPD and also the Department of Behavioral Health, Department of Corrections, Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, because it's all part of this broader mission that we all have to fill the gaps that we're seeing in the various roles that we play so that we can continue moving in lockstep to address what I believe is the biggest challenge facing our city right now, which is this violence.
You know,
Can I say something, Dr. Mitchell, just about in terms of
absolutely.
how I view things? Because I've spoken to the chamber before, and I'll say this, that our city has invested heavily across the board, and that if you're asking me as deputy mayor, one of the things that I talk with my agencies about is a back to the basics moment, that we have to be excellent at the things that we have to be excellent at. And as much as we have to innovate and come up with creative ideas, one of the things that we are really looking at in the district is stripping back a certain extent to what are the fundamentals that really must be working. I understand we need a highly functioning Office of Unified Communications that can respond quickly. That homicide went down. If you were to ask Chief Lanier at a certain point in about 2017, she would say response was quicker by fire EMS. So an assault with dangerous weapon doesn't turn into a homicide, right? Because they're able to get to the hospital quicker. We need a good hospital east of the river, because that's where a lot of our trauma is. There are those things that are longer and bigger issues, but I believe we have all the tools. We have many of the tools. We have too many tools. And so we're too many things. And so we need the 3 pillars, a highly functioning executive agencies. And that includes police, enough police to control the type of homicide that happens in our city, which is often crew-based, which has certain strategies that address it. Addressing some of the lifestyle issues that we are proud to be a reform-minded city and at the forefront of criminal justice reform and we did many things that other cities talked about, but we also have to be willing to look at, and I've talked, and certainly you've seen policy proposals from the mayor with our package, and you'll see more. And, our true partner in Councilmember Pinto in saying, what are some of them that are leading to, that we're seeing the consequence and outcome now of reforms that maybe we couldn't have known because we didn't have a comparator jurisdiction. We were the leader, right? So it's all coming together at a point where we need to make adjustments. We're investing in making sure we have enough officers. We're investing in looking, we can love violence intervention, but we're not getting the outcomes we need. We're not. So every year we've added more funds. Have we done too much that has pushed us away from models of effective violence intervention where they're competing instead of coordinating? And that's on me to make sure we're not doing that. How are we using technology? We have all these tools. Are we using them to the maximum effect? No, right? So this is kind of an integration of what's been done to this point, because I can add every new program we could in the world, but that's not helping us do what we need to do, which is make our city safer. So what can we strip away so that the fundamental functions of these agencies and all these programs are really working, and looking at data and saying, we may have a sacred cow, programs we love, but right now we have to stop the bleed in our city. And if they're not working, then we need to reinvest, and we need to be honest about that. So that's a lot of what has been going on over the course of the year, and adjustments are being made. You're seeing policy proposals, adjustments in leadership, and whatever we have to do, because we've done this before in the district. We've reduced homicide, we've reduced crime. We saw it for years. We can do it again. And we will do it again.
I appreciate that. And both of you kind of both looked at the present and even provided some casting for the future of what we can expect through legislation, Councilwoman Pinto, that you described, and Deputy Mayor Apaya, this notion of stripping back. We only have a short amount of time even left. We have about 4 minutes. So in the next 4 minutes, I'm going to ask both of you to do a little bit for me, is do again what you've done just in that first question, is what has worked in this city to improve safety. And I won't just say crime and violence, because we know that public safety is more than just policing. It includes a lot more than that. So what has worked from your estimation? What has worked? And then what is clearly what we think the future is? I'm going to come to you, Councilwoman. Again, we have a couple minutes each for you to answer that question before we turn it back over to the chamber.
Sure. And if I can just briefly comment on one thing the Deputy Mayor said, because I think it's really important about this idea of we can't just keep expanding and expanding. That's why it's not a trope when we say it's important to work together, because if we have a legislative body that is passing laws or new requirements without consultation with the implementers of those laws and requirements, we're going to have gaps, and that is not going to lead and it hasn't always led to the most productive, efficient operation when it comes to public safety. And that is something I think people should be rest assured that we do not have all the answers. We cannot solve this alone in government. We need every person part of this with us, but that your government leaders who are focused on the work of public safety every day get that importance of partnership. In terms of what has worked, we think a lot about this in terms of crime reduction in different neighborhoods, and just thinking about the different rates of crime that we see are often in the same neighborhoods that have been traditionally underinvested in. And we wonder why that is. Some of it is over a long period of time. Some of I think what's been effective is making sure that neighbors and parents know where their children are. That's something we can't really legislate. The mayor has tried with, the curfew and working to get wraparound services to people. I think that's proven to be effective, to make sure that we can connect kids who are out too late to services they need. I think making sure that our school leaders recognize their role in the public safety space. This has been done well at various schools and with school resource officers who can understand the challenges facing young people who may be in crisis and get to them before something happens. I'm going to stop there because I see the time to make sure we have time for Deputy Mayor.
So really specifically for us in this kind of grassrootsy ways, we have, like in my office, really taken the lead in working across cluster. So I use an example, I love this example of our nightlife task force, right? Like that, which has been going for about a year. We saw an uptick of all sorts of type of activity in our H Street, our Golden Triangle, sort of DuPont Circle area in H Street, and knew we don't have enough police resources, but we need to address the host of issues that are going on, and brought together partners from DDOT, DPW, ABCA, Fire EMS, MPD, CSOSA, like federal partners, DYRS, almost anybody in a DC government uniform who generally work at night, but are working together in spaces to do what they do. Enforcement, right? Like traffic control, parking, policing. And we really have seen reductions in those corridors of crime, but also of just the safety and satisfaction of residents as well, which is part of it because we want people to be safe and feel safe. So we're using those models across different spaces. We now have multi-agency public safety task force that goes out and walks with MOKers and businesses and others to really address some of the targeted issues happening in those neighborhoods together. You'll see more of that we've come to the chambers and our business owners. And I use Giant as an example, like having a grocery store in right there in Ward 8 Remain is important. And so I see, Ms. Kinlow and Franco, who joined us and a host of agencies to go to say, yes, there's a safety issue, but what are the ways we can support to address the safety issue that go beyond recognizing the importance of the public health aspect of a grocery store? And so there's really a lot of that kind of thinking going on that's a little bit like we all have to work together. And so you'll see more of that. And of course, what Councilmember Pinto said, us working together on the policy side of the house as well, so that we can have efficient, effective policies that allow us to really continue to see, and we are seeing reductions. I want to say that homicide is a difficult and tricky and horrible outcome. But we know that even in just the past couple of months, that the 30-day trends in violent crime, in robbery, in some of our other areas are coming down. And so we want to continue to do the type of work that we've seen of partnering and between policy and executive to see that, while we really work on stopping the bleed when it comes to like heartbreaking amounts of homicide in disproportionate places in our city.
Well, I know that the chamber and its members and the attendees that have watched this portion have so many questions, and I wish we had more time. I do want you to give me 20 seconds apiece on just what our businesses can do to help with this effort. I would like for you to give them a charge. Deputy Mayor, you touched on it with your Giant example, almost as if you're reading my mind. So I'm going to pivot to the council member quickly. 20 seconds. What do business owners, what is their role in helping in public safety in the district? And then I'll let the deputy mayor have the last word.
You need to stay open. You need to have folks come in to work. That's very helpful. Does not have to be 5 days a week, but it's helpful to have a couple days a week. More people in our commercial corridors helps a lot. And I would say again, the secure DC plan that I proposed has a number of interventions that are going to specifically be important to partner with the business community on. Safe commercial corridors, so that we can have more specific funds given to every commercial corridor, whether that's patrols on the ground, more lighting, whatever you need. And we're going to be having a roundtable soon on organized retail theft. We had come up with a couple policy ideas around changes in the law. We worried those would have some unanticipated consequences and not actually get at the problem. So we figured a better idea to have a roundtable so we can all have this conversation at the same time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
And I would just say what you continue to do, right? Like showing up with us in spaces. And then also you represent critical aspects of our city. And so we appreciate in the Safer Stronger, in the process of really working through that process of the mayor's legislation, of you all showing up, of you all speaking with your members, of you contacting council members and participating in that process, which is so vital. We need every voice in our city, including yours, to continue to inform the type of policies and programmatic decisions that are being made. So continuing to engage with us, inviting us out to explain what's going on, and being the voices for those you represent in the sectors that you represent back to us of what you need, because it is a partnership.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time. And I think that we were able to really give a large overview and even give a charge in a short amount of time. I want to give it back to our CEO, Franco, for the rest of the program. Thank you again for allowing me to moderate this fireside chat. Hopefully in the future, we can be around the fire and enjoy each other's company. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.